Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be showcasing an extremely oppressive Pokemon that can just continue to boost and boost and boost. Shadow Skuntank. So I recently caught this one from a Team Go Rocket grunt, and because of the recent Team Go Rocket event, I was able to remove frustration. I'm going to be pairing it up with Quagsire and Togetic. So without further ado, let's get into the battles. In the first match, a pretty weird lead into Alola Ninetales. We do outpace and we do more damage if the opponent is on Charm. So the opponent actually lets the Trailblaze through and we're able to get the farm down. Opponent sends in Rapidash and I'm going to go for the Crunch. And Crunch would pretty much one-shot from this range. So I'm guessing the opponent is going to respect with a shield. But look, the Poison Jab's already got them into pretty much the half health range. Now, the opponent's just going to fire off a Flame Charge, and I'm going to no-shield it. That doesn't do too much damage. And I wonder if I should have overfarmed. I was a little bit scared of a boosted Rapidash, but I'm going to fire off the Aqua Tail. Opponent does let it through, and in the back it's Ferrothorn, and this is just a one game. 2-to-1 shields, Togetic does destroy Ferrothorn. Opponent has the ability to hit us with the super effective Thunder, but the spamminess of Aerial Ace is going to prove to be a little bit too much for Ferrothorn. Opponent is trying to fight back as much as they can. I'm going to go for another Aerial Ace, and this won't do that much damage, but it won't take too many more Aerial Aces for us to get the KO. I did go 8-2 with this team, and I'm showcasing 7 of the 10 battles and 7 wins. So I gained around 100 ELO in my 3 sets that I did do this team, which is quite surprising. This team has quite a few double weaknesses and a few triple weaknesses, but we're able to overcome them. Into the next match, a neutral lead into Charjabug. The opponent does have the pacing advantage, so they will be able to win switch in the Zero Shield. Skuntank loses a lot of Zero Shield situations, but it switches into Lantern, which is quite surprising. And I have Trailblaze coverage. That does so much damage to the extremely bulky Lantern. I'm going to overfarm a little bit more and switch into Quagsire. From here, because of the Poison Jab damage, we're probably going to be able to get the full farm down. Opponent is going to be able to fire off 2 Surfs, but that's absolutely fine with me as we get so much energy from this farm down. And Quagsire's energy threatens pretty much everything, except for maybe Ferrothorn. And the opponent sends in Meganium, so we will be able to get off the Stone Edge, which does do some very, very nice damage, getting them close to half. Now I can definitely send in Skuntank and just pretty much go for the full farm down after firing off the Trailblaze. Opponent is actually going to shield it, which is quite surprising, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm going to shield the Frenzy Plant because I do want to preserve my Skuntank, as Togetic is not going to appreciate the Charjabug. But unfortunately, we do get barely outpaced, and now I'm forced to send in the Togetic, and this is a Zero Shield situation. But I'm going to go for the Aerial Ace. Opponent is going to shield it up, and let's see. The opponent going for the Discharge, unfortunately, that's going to do a lot of damage, but they go for the X-Scissor. That's probably because they're running the X-Scissor Crunch moveset. I'm very, very surprised. In this situation, it cost them the whole game, so I think they might be questioning their choices now. The opponent sends back in Meganium, they're unable to make the Frenzy Plant, and we can fire off the X-Scissor. Aerial Ace, sorry. And take that game. GG's to that opponent. Into the next match, terrible lead into Quagsire. I'm going to immediately safe switch into Togetic. There are so many Charjabugs that answered my Togetic safe switch, but if we landed the Dazzling Gleam, we were definitely able to flip the matchup. I saw a lot of Quagsire or Whiscash or even Gastrodon Charjabug cores, so that was a little bit hard for this team, as normally the Mudboy was in the lead and the Charjabug was on the safe switch, which meant they could pretty much fully hard counter our team. Opponent responds by Togetic safe switch with Greedent, which is not a great response, and I'm able to land the Dazzling Gleam and then go for the Aerial Ace, which almost takes out the Greedent. And now we've got switch advantage, which is really nice. Opponent sends back in Quagsire, I throw 1 in the move to throw in the CIP tie, and Dazzling Gleam does do so much damage. Dazzling Gleam is an extremely powerful move, even on a not very hard-hitting Pokemon like Togetic, opponent actually is unable to get the farm down, and they have to throw, which is quite crazy. Opponent goes for another Aqua Tail, and now I think I can just send in the Skuntank and go for a full farm down, as Skuntank's energy is so oppressive and can do so many things. And I did surprise quite a few people with Trailblaze. It turns out maybe sending in Quagsire would have been the ideal play, as it is Lucario in the back. This is just a power-up punch, so I do let it through. But this is just going to be a one game, as we do have the move loaded on Skuntank, which would KO, and we'll be able to make it to 2 Aqua Tails before the opponent KOs us. Opponent throws after 2, which can also only be a power-up punch. So I'm very surprised this opponent didn't at least try to go for a hard-hitting move, unless they're on the power-up punch, Thunder Punch moveset, where this is a very awkward moveset. I'm able to switch and snipe with the Skuntank, and Crunch from this range will grab the KO against the Glassy Lucario. GG's. Into the next match, a surprisingly good lead into Ferrothorn. I'm going to say switch into Togetic. Even though Poison Jabs are resisted, they do so much damage. It's absolutely amazing, and you can continuously boost up your attack with Trailblaze. Opponent is going to stay in to my Togetic safe switch to fire off Thunder. Thunder does quite a bit more than I expected, but Togetic isn't exactly the bulkiest Pokemon. This team is fairly glassy, except for Quagsire, and this is definitely not a team for climbing. I'd say Shadow Skuntank is more of a fun choice, and you can also run Flamethrower to surprise some Ferrothorns. So I'm unfortunately unable to get the full farm down. Opponent is at the Thunder, so I'm going to shoot it up. Opponent is going to send in, let's see, they're waiting. And they're going to send in Turtonator. Turtonator, not a great answer to Skuntank, especially when it was up energy by so much. Opponent actually lets the Crunch through. I'm very glad I went for the Crunch and not the Trailblaze. I was very tempted to do that. Opponent is going to shoot up the resisted Trailblaze, and they're going to send in Quagsire. I respond with my own Quagsire, but theirs is Shadow. Opponent's going to go for the Aqua Tail. That's going to do a fair amount of damage, and I'm going to overfarm and fire off my own Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail does some decent damage both ways, especially when they're both Shadow, but in this case, when one is Shadow and one is not, it's okay. Opponent goes for the Aqua Tail, it almost KOs, and I'm able to fire off the next Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to almost grab the KO, and the opponent switches back into Turtonator. We can very easily shield this move up, and the opponent, maybe for the BM, they go for the Overheat, and we can just farm down the Quagsire. Well, actually, I sort of go for the BM Trailblaze. Double super effective, it grabs the KO, GG's. Into the next match, an okay lead into Weezing. This is sort of a game of baits for the opponent, but usually they will bait, but unfortunately, as you'll see, the opponent unfamiliar with the moveset does actually shield the Trailblaze, and I try to call the bait. Unfortunately, the opponent does full send the play rough, which almost KOs us. Unfortunately, again, we're not able to make the move, so I'm going to switch into Quagsire. Opponent is going to go for the play rough again. This does so much damage, unfortunately, and the opponent responds Quagsire with Diggersby. I'm not sure how weak a team could be to a Mudboy. Absolutely cool broken by Whiscash, Gastrodon, Quagsire. So, unfortunately for the opponent, this is not going to be a very good game for them, as Diggersby has nowhere to go in this team. Even up against Skuntank up energy, Diggersby can have a really hard time with continuous boosting. Opponent going to fire off the Scorching Sands, actually. They must be on the Hyper Beam moveset. Unfortunately, though, they do get the attack drop. Opponent sends in Galar and Weezing, attempting for a catch, but I show patience, and I'm able to fire off the Aerial Ace and get the KO. Opponent sends back in Diggersby, and I, for no reason, catch the Scorching Sands onto my Skuntank, and the game was already locked and loaded, but now that I got that catch, it's going to be even easier. In the back, The opponent has Ninetales, so maybe that catch was necessary. Fire Spin shredding through our health. Are we going to be able to make it to 3 Aerial Aces? This is going to be a tricky game. Can we make it there? And this team was very, very, very weak to Mud Boys. I now see why they didn't send in the Ninetales to the Quagsire. But anyway, we're going for the Aerial Ace, and oh my goodness, the opponent throws their move. But this is not enough. We need one more Fairy Wind to put them into Aerial Ace range. Should we survive the next Fire Spin? We do. We are able to fire off the Aerial Ace. Does this still KO? It does. We're able to take that game with a sliver of health. Into the next match, the opponent switches out of the same lead we saw in the first match, and the opponent safe switches into Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz, not a great safe switch in this meta, as there can very easily be Ninetales Alolan and Togetic and Galarian Weezing to greet it. So Mandibuzz, not a safe switch I expect or suggest you run. Opponent is going to go for the Aerial Ace, as Dark Pulses is resisted by the Fairy typing. I'm going to fire at the Dazzling Gleam now, and Dazzling Gleam will grab the KO. An opponent is going to be sending back in Ninetales. I can just fire off. I actually go for the Dazzling Gleam, as the opponent's trying to get the full farm down. Dazzling Gleam does so much damage, and I'm able to switch into the Skuntank and attempt for the farm down snipe, but unfortunately the opponent doesn't react quick enough and go for the Weather Ball. They send in Quagsire. Do they know about the Trailblaze coverage? They don't. I mean, they do. They do. They very much know about that Trailblaze coverage. They do shield it up, unfortunately. And now they go for the Mud Bomb. I thought if it wasn't Aqua Tail, we would be able to survive it and make it to another Trailblaze, but unfortunately it is the Mud Bomb, which is not the recommended moveset for this meta. I think Aqua Tail is needed against all the Diggersbys and other ground types. So Aqua Tail, a lot more spammy as well, with a 5-4-5-4. I'm able to make the Mud Bomb catch onto Togetic, which is very, very nice, as that, I think, seals this game. I can now overfarm and fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will grab it the shield, and the opponent's going to fire off their own Mud Bomb. I do have a shield remaining, so I'm going to shield it up. Mud Bomb does get shielded, and the opponent snipes with Ninetales Alolan. Ninetales Alolan Weather Ball does not get the KO, and we're able to Mudshot farm down. And let's see, does Aqua Tail actually KO from this range? It does. It barely KOs, and we're able to take that game. In the next match, another Chargebug lead, and yes, weak connection. I get that all the time, unfortunately, but it doesn't often seem to affect the gameplay. Opponent's going to fire off the X-Scissor, and I'm going to fire off the Crunch now. I think it's pretty obvious that they're going to shield, so I could have just gone for the Trailblaze to boost, but that's alright, as the opponent outpaces anyway, and I'm going to double shield in this matchup, because I really like double shotting Skuntank, as it's definitely the glassiest Pokemon on this team. We're barely able to get the farm down, and the opponent's going to send in Whiscash. Do they know about the Trailblaze coverage? I think they will. Yep, they do. But we're able to make it to another Trailblaze. The opponent miscounted, and Trailblaze is going to easily one-shot the Whiscash, and they send in Skuntank of their own. This one is not Shadow, so not half as cool. I'm going to go for the Dazzling Gleam. Opponent's only win con is to go for the full farm down and Trailblazer Quagsire, but even then, one Trailblaze from a Skuntank doesn't care. So that's a GG's. Thanks for watching.